Welcome to a new segment here at MacGuffinPodcast.com, and it is called Writer's Block. I am Brandi. This
Writer's
is
Block.
Henry. We haven't seen you around in a while.
I was here for lightning round.
Yeah. Yeah. Now he's back, better than ever. And we're here to talk about movies from a slightly different perspective, from the perspective of a writer. Henry and I both write screenplays for fun in our spare time. And so we have a different perspective, maybe, than some other people. We like to talk about the story more than we like to talk about anything else. So that is why we are here.
It's going to be far more exciting than everything else MacGuffin puts out. So just keep on watching this and, go ahead and tweet back at MacGuffin about how much you love us more than the other guys.
Right. And for our first segment here, we are specifically going to be talking about what we love most about the Coen Brothers.
Why
and their
are we going to do that,
style,
Brandi?
Because they have their new film, True Grit, coming out very soon.
Christmas, like a couple days after, I believe.
Yes.
It was supposed to be Christmas Day release.
Depending on what city you live in, I think. But
right.
I'm very much looking forward to it. You looking forward to it?
I am, but I think we should talk about that towards the end of the show.
Before we talk about True Grit itself, let's talk about what else we love about the Coen Brothers.
Well, I had saw on your Twitter please put her Twitter right here, that you had just watched Blood Simple for the first time last night.
I did just watch Blood Simple for the very first time. And I don't really know anything about it. I don't really know how that's possible. Like, I vaguely had a notion that,
right.
there was some crime involved. And
a little bit.
Dan Hedaya was in it.
Wait, it's a Coen Brothers film. Weird.
Yeah.
There's some mediocre people getting in some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
Fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I watched it and I was really impressed because, number one, that's your first movie. Way to go.
Yeah.
Way to go.
They did an alright job there.
Yeah, and I mean, the story itself is not that complicated. It's your basic, one person wants to kill another person out of jealousy and anger, and then complications ensue because of misunderstandings and poor decision making, etc., etc.
Right.
Leads up to a really interesting final showdown between
one of the best final showdowns ever.
Yeah, it was great. It was really great. And I think what I was really most impressed by was how subtle all of the miscommunications were between the different characters. Because so often in movies you just get really frustrated about that. It's like, how can you not understand what the other person is trying to tell you right now?
Right.
But I think it works so well in that film.
I feel like it's a really good example of, as their first film, of how Coen Brothers write. They seem to always take something that's normal and put a huge twist on it. And sometimes they take characters that to the average eye might seem extremely stupid.
Right.
These are really quirky characters. What can they do? And by the end of the film, you're in love with them. They're doing fantastical things. I may have made that word up.
No. I mean, I don't know if you're using it in the right context, but you didn't make it up.
They do fantastical things. That's the context, and we're going to take it back.
Okay.
And, yeah, I think we've seen that in a bunch of Raising Arizona. I would never hang out with Nick Cage until I saw the end of that film.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure we all have an uncle like Nick Cage in Raising Arizona.
Well, I think that they're great at writing characters that have a sort of tunnel vision about what they want to have happen, their goal. And somehow it comes across as endearing rather than obsessive.
Yeah. I watched a Coen Brothers too, Brandi.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What was it?
I watched a film called Barton Fink.
Okay, I saw this forever ago, and I don't really remember it, so why don't you tell us?
Let me pull up my pretty list of notes.
Okay.
I'm not really going to do it because I kind of have it memorized. Barton Fink, I think, is a really interesting movie to look through, especially for the segment of Writer's Block, the best pod on MacGuffin podcast channel, because the character of Barton Fink is a playwright. And so because of this, it's a playwright that was successful in writing theater and has now migrated over to Hollywood to do a film about wrestling. And the interesting thing about this film is the Coen Brothers have rumored to have written it in 3 weeks, right after they did Miller's Crossing, because they apparently had writer's block while doing Miller's Crossing.
There's an interesting film.
Yes, so they personified writer's block, put this into characters, and by doing so, they get to talk about writing and also production in Tinseltown. I thought it was fantastic. The characters really popped out, and John Goodman's in it, who's also in Red State. I like Kevin Smith movies.
I like John Goodman, so that's all right.
Do you have memories of Barton Fink, or is it just so far past?
That John Goodman is kind of scary in it. Is that right?
He is.
John Turturro is kind of...
The interesting thing about Barton Fink is that it really feels like it's 3 movies in one. So each act kind of has its own thing. The first one is kind of like a dude with a problem. So we see this guy and he has to get this movie down, and he's got the pressure of the studio behind him. Meanwhile, dead people wake up in his bed. Then we go to John Goodman, and it's like, oh, it's a buddy film. These guys are really good friends. And then John Goodman turns into a serial killer, and it's like, wait, there's a monster in the house. So through the progression of 3 movies, we have 3 different genres going in.
Interesting.
Which is funny, because when you talk about writing, you're supposed to follow the rules unless you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's definitely something the Coen Brothers don't do. And sometimes it works really well, and I mean, I tend to remember and talk about their movies that are awesome more than their ones that I think are not so awesome, which they do have plenty of as well.
Do you have not favorites?
Oh, yeah.
Let's hear Brandy's not
okay,
favorites.
With a caveat that I've actually never seen The Ladykillers, which I hear is
horrible.
Supposed to be horrible.
So it could be number one.
Never saw that one.
On
All right.
your not
I couldn't even make it through The Man Who Wasn't There. Did not work for me.
Wow. I disagree.
Did not like it at all. Yeah. And I can't stand the Hudsucker Proxy either. Like the
it's
satire
really
humor in
obnoxious.
that, like, yeah, it's so obnoxious. That is the perfect word for it. Like,
yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's obnoxious. So, but I mean, they have other movies that I think are just absolutely perfect. And I would like, my favorite one of theirs is actually their most recent one, A Serious Man.
I love A Serious Man.
I can't even like really describe why it's so good, because it's sort of like this transcendent gem of a film where it's just like, I just know that I just watched something that was literal genius.
Yeah.
And I can't even pretend to explain why it works, because I'm just not good enough. Like, I'm not worthy.
Right. I remember the first time I was watching, I was sitting down and I was like, wow, I don't know if there's necessarily a story here, but the way this character is written, I'm going to keep on watching this, because anything can happen to this character, and I just want to know how Larry is going to handle it. And then I did some looking into it afterwards, because I didn't understand half of it, and apparently it parallels the Book of Job pretty well.
Yeah, I read that too. Not that I'm familiar with the Book of Job enough to get.
We read those books all the time. I got Bible on Cliff Notes, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
yeah, I like
nice.
the Ben-Hur story.
Nice. So nice.
Or is it Samson? But yeah, apparently Larry is supposed to be Job, so all of these horrible things happen to him and no one really understands why, and it's supposed to stand against the testaments of God, so I can definitely see how that works in the film. And then there's little things popping up, like, do you remember the dialogue scene where GM Records calls him up and is trying to sell him Santana's Abraxas? Right.
Yeah, it's the Columbia House guy, right? Like trying to do,
So apparently Abraxas, and I'm not sure if that's pronounced right, Abraxas, is another term for God. So when Larry's on the phone going, I don't want Abraxas, I don't know Abraxas, I will not take Abraxas, he is saying that he doesn't want God.
Wow.
Genius.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about that movie for a really long time, but we should move on and talk about the movie that is coming up, which is True Grit.
Batman 5. Oh.
What are your feelings about... That would be awesome if they were a Batman movie, huh?
Right?
But...
Return of Robin and the Tights, Coen Brothers. It's a musical.
Oh my god. So many of my favorite things wrapped up into one.
Just add a couple Glee actors and you're sold.
Yeah, let's not talk about Glee.
All right, let's not. True Grit. I have something I want to talk about True Grit. I keep on talking about it, and my Facebook thread got into this heated argument because True Grit was originally made as an adaptation starring John Wayne back in 1967, I want to say on top of my head.
Author of the novel is Charles Portis, I think.
Yes.
It's a great novel.
Right.
I've actually never seen the original film. But
I have not either.
I love the book.
I have not seen it. But since there's this original film, are Coen Brothers remaking this, or is it just a retelling of the book? Now, the Coen Brothers have gone on print to say, in no way or form is this a remake. We are readapting the novel, and we're going to bring elements that wasn't in it. But when you have a cast and a film and a crew, it's hard to me to think that people aren't going to rewatch that film, especially someone like Jeff Bridges. Sure. Jeff Bridges doesn't read books, right? He's going to read his lines, and then he's going to pop in the film and see what John Wayne did and how he can be different from that. So,
maybe. I mean, frankly, I don't care. I don't understand all the hoopla about, you know, whether it's a remake, whether it's not a remake. You know, I feel like people just went through this conversation with Let Me In, whether it was a remake or not. And if the movie's good, great. I don't care what your source material was. And if it's crap, I also don't care what your source material was. Like, just make a movie and make it good.
I have a log line for True Grit. Oh. Would you like to know True Grit's log line?
Sure.
I have to pull it up, so keep on talking.
Would you like to select a Wi-Fi network?
I would not. So, the log line for True Grit is, a tough U.S. Marshal helps a stubborn young woman track down her father's murder. Now, in the trailer, she didn't look like a young woman. She looked like a girl, right?
Yeah, she's, I think, 14.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's in the book, she's quite young. Like one of the great female characters in literature, actually. So I'm really hoping that it does some justice to the character in the book, who is just really incredible.
When adapting a book, how do you feel that process should go? Should it be exactly like a book? Is it okay for a film to differ from it? I mean, we're going to show a story now as opposed to tell a story, but do you think a director should be able to tell parts of that story from a different perspective? Like,
sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, otherwise you're just going to have, like, narration or something like that, and be, like, relying way too heavily on stuff that tools that you don't have or that you shouldn't overuse in a film.
Right. What would make this movie piss you off after reading the book?
I feel like that would be a huge spoiler if I said.
Yeah, the sex change. I agree.
Yeah, you know. Well, there is something specific that I'm very curious if they're going to do it or not, but it'll have to wait until after people have seen the movie because I don't want to ruin anything.
Oh, but if we put the spoil here, we're gonna up our views and stuff. We can be like True Grit spoilers.
No, I don't think so. All right, well, I think we need to wrap this one up. This has been our first edition of Writer's Block here at MacGuffinPodcast.com. You can find more videos of different sorts, plenty of reviews, articles, and whatnot on the website. You can go
there and tell them how much our podcast is better than the top fives and the ones where the two guys are talking about their favorite movies and stuff.
I do the top fives.
Yeah, but you're evolving now. You went from gorilla to Homo sapien in this podcast right now.
Okay.
I wasn't calling you a gorilla. That might have come across as rude. There you go. MacGuffinPodcast.com.
See you next time. Okay.